Chapter 1. Arrival at Yellowstone. The sun was beginning its descent, casting a golden hue over the vast expanse of Yellowstone National Park. The trees whispered secrets to each other as a gentle wind rustled their leaves. But amidst this serene backdrop, a luxurious motorhome roared to life, signaling the arrival of the much-anticipated Thompson family. Inside the motorhome, the atmosphere was electric. "We're finally here," exclaimed Jeremy, his eyes shining with excitement. The eldest of the three siblings, at 17, he had spent the better part of the year memorizing every nook and cranny of the park. Maps, brochures, and guidebooks were strewn all over his bunk. "Did you know," he began, adjusting his glasses, "that Yellowstone spans over 2.2 million acres? Lewis, the 15-year-old middle child, looked up from his e-reader, pushing his mop of curly hair out of his eyes. "Actually," he chimed in, "Yellowstone was the first national park in the world, established in 1872. And it's not just the geysers and wildlife. There are stories, legends, tales of the land that few remember." He had that far-off look he often got when diving into one of his obscure topics. Vincent, the youngest at 13, was already itching to get out. His restless energy was palpable. "History lessons later," he declared, unlatching the motorhome door. "I want to see what's out there." And with that, he dashed out, his sneakers crunching on the gravel. Their parents, Mark and Lisa, exchanged amused glances. "We've got our hands full," Lisa remarked, watching her children with a mixture of pride and mild exasperation. As the family set up camp, Jeremy's detailed knowledge of the park quickly became evident. He directed the positioning of the motorhome with precision, ensuring they had the best view of the setting sun. His enthusiasm was infectious, and soon, even Lewis put away his e-reader to help. A group of park rangers, doing their evening rounds, stopped by their campsite. "First time at Yellowstone?" one of them asked, a friendly smile on his face. Jeremy, eager to share, began recounting facts about the park's geothermal features, its diverse ecosystem, and the best trails to explore. The rangers exchanged impressed glances. "You've done your homework," one of them remarked. "We could use someone like you on our team." Lewis, not one to be left out, added, "Did you know there are tales of ghostly apparitions around the park? Whispered legends say that the spirits of ancient Native American tribes still roam these lands, guarding their sacred grounds." The rangers looked at each other, a hint of unease in their eyes. "There are many stories about Yellowstone," one of them replied, his voice a touch lower. "Some best left untold." Vincent, who had been exploring a nearby thicket, returned with a curious object in his hand. It was a smooth, obsidian-like stone with strange, almost hieroglyphic etchings. "Found this over there," he said nonchalantly, pointing towards the dense woods. "Looks old." The rangers exchanged another glance, their jovial demeanor replaced by a more serious tone. "You should be careful where you tread," one of them warned. "Yellowstone is vast and full of mysteries. Not all of them are welcoming." As the rangers moved on, the family gathered around the campfire. The flames danced, casting eerie shadows on their faces. The vastness of Yellowstone, with all its beauty and secrets, loomed around them. The night was filled with the sounds of nature, but beneath it all was an unsettling silence, a sense of something ancient and watching. Vincent Stone became the topic of discussion. Jeremy, ever the geologist, was fascinated by its composition, while Lewis delved into his vast repository of knowledge, trying to decipher the markings. As the night deepened, the Thompsons retreated into their motorhome, the events of the evening playing on their minds. Vincent placed the stone on the dashboard, where it gleamed ominously under the moonlight. Outside, the vast expanse of Yellowstone seemed to breathe, the trees, the waters, the very earth holding secrets that were ancient and profound. And as the family drifted into sleep, unaware of the adventures that awaited them, the stone on the dashboard pulsed softly, resonating with an energy that was not of this world. The stage was set. The Thompsons had arrived at Yellowstone, and the mysteries of the park were about to unfold. Chapter 2. First encounter. The morning sun painted Yellowstone in a palette of golds and greens. Birds sang their morning hymns, and the scent of pine filled the air. But for the Thompson family, the serenity of the morning was about to be shattered. Vincent, ever the explorer, was up at the crack of dawn. Armed with a backpack and a sense of adventure, he ventured towards the dense woods he had explored the previous evening. The obsidian-like stone he had found was now safely tucked in his pocket, its weight oddly reassuring. As he delved deeper into the forest, the canopy above grew thicker, casting the ground below in a twilight haze. The chirping of birds grew distant, replaced by an eerie silence. Vincent's footsteps seemed amplified, each crunch of leaves and snap of twigs echoing ominously. Drawn by an inexplicable force, Vincent found himself in front of a massive boulder. Its surface was smooth, save for a series of intricate carvings that mirrored the markings on the stone in his pocket. As he approached, the ground beneath him vibrated subtly, a low hum filling the air. Curiosity piqued. Vincent began to examine the boulder more closely. His fingers traced the carvings, and as they did, the stone in his pocket grew warm. Suddenly, with a mechanical precision, a portion of the boulder receded, revealing a hidden entrance. Inside, a dimly lit tunnel stretched into the unknown. The walls were lined with the same obsidian material, and the air was thick with a metallic scent. Vincent hesitated for a moment, then, driven by his insatiable curiosity, stepped inside. Back at the campsite, Jeremy and Lewis were engrossed in a heated discussion about the best trails to explore. Their parents were preparing breakfast, the aroma of sizzling bacon filling the air. But as the minutes turned to hours, and there was no sign of Vincent, concern began to mount. Using the motorhome's advanced technology, Jeremy launched the proximity drones, sending them in search of their younger brother. The drones, equipped with high-resolution cameras, scoured the park, sending back live footage. It was Lewis who first spotted something amiss. One of the drone feeds showed the entrance Vincent had discovered. But more alarmingly, it captured strange activities within. Shadowy figures moved with purpose, their reptilian features unmistakable even in the dim light. The family gathered around the screen, their faces pale. "We need to find Vincent," Lisa whispered, her voice trembling. As they approached the entrance, they were met by a reptilian scout. Standing over 7 feet tall, its scaly skin glistened in the dappled sunlight. Slit-like eyes regarded them coldly, and a forked tongue flicked out, tasting the air. The initial shock of the encounter gave way to a tense standoff. The reptilian, realizing it was outnumbered, hissed menacingly but made no move to attack. Jeremy, ever the diplomat, stepped forward, hands raised in a gesture of peace. "We're just looking for our brother," he began, his voice steady despite his racing heart. The reptilian scout tilted its head, seemingly processing the information. Then, with a swift motion, it produced a device that emitted a series of clicks and whirs. Moments later, Vincent emerged from the entrance, looking dazed but unharmed. Relief washed over the family, but their reunion was short-lived. The Reptilian scout, having delivered Vincent, retreated into the tunnel, the entrance ceiling shut behind it. The Thompsons returned to their motorhome, shaken by the encounter. Vincent recounted his discovery of the entrance and the vast underground network he had glimpsed. The family realized that they had stumbled upon something much larger and more sinister than they could have imagined. As night fell, the campfire's flames flickered, casting dancing shadows on their faces. The vastness of Yellowstone, once a source of wonder, now held a sense of foreboding. "We need to find out what's going on," Mark declared, determination in his eyes. "We can't just pretend we didn't see what we saw." The family nodded in agreement. Armed with their unique skills and the motorhome's advanced technology, they decided to investigate further. Unbeknownst to them, their decision would set them on a path of unimaginable danger and discovery. As the embers of the campfire died down, the Thompsons retreated into their motorhome. But outside, in the vast expanse of Yellowstone, eyes watched them, glowing in the darkness. The first encounter was over, but the real adventure was just beginning. Chapter 3. Discovering the underground. The dawn of a new day brought with it a sense of urgency for the Thompson family. The events of the previous day had left them with more questions than answers, and they were determined to uncover the mysteries that lay beneath Yellowstone. Vincent led the way to the hidden entrance, the obsidian stone from his pocket serving as their guide. As they approached the massive boulder, Jeremy placed his hand on the intricate carvings, mirroring his younger brother's actions from the day before. The ground vibrated, the low hum grew louder, and once again, the entrance revealed itself. The family exchanged anxious glances before venturing inside. The dimly lit tunnel stretched before them, its walls pulsating with a strange energy. The metallic scent was stronger now, almost overpowering. As they delved deeper, the tunnel opened up into a vast cavern. The sight that met their eyes was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. A sprawling underground city lay before them, its architecture a blend of ancient designs and advanced technology. Towering structures made of the same obsidian material rose from the ground, connected by a network of bridges and walkways. But what truly took their breath away was the sheer number of reptilians. They moved with purpose, their activities a well-coordinated dance of an advanced civilization. The Thompsons took cover behind a rock outcropping, observing the colony from a safe distance. This is unbelievable," Lisa whispered, her voice filled with a mix of wonder and fear. Lewis, ever the scholar, was quick to piece together the puzzle. "This isn't just a colony," he murmured, his eyes scanning the vast expanse. "It's a hub, a central point for their operations on Earth. And from the looks of it, they've been here for a very long time." The realization of the gravity of their situation began to sink in. They were in the heart of an alien civilization, vastly outnumbered and out of their depth. Every instinct screamed at them to turn back, to flee to the safety of the surface. But they knew they couldn't leave without gathering evidence, without understanding the true intentions of the Reptilians. Vincent, ever the risk-taker, decided to venture closer. Using the shadows to his advantage, he made his way to one of the structures. Inside, he found what appeared to be a communication center. Screens lined the walls, displaying images of various locations on Earth. A large central console pulsed with energy, its controls a series of symbols and glyphs. Seizing the opportunity, Vincent attempted to send a message to the outside world. He placed the obsidian stone on the console, hoping it would serve as a conduit. For a moment, the console lit up, a beam of energy shooting upwards. But almost as quickly, alarms began to blare, the room bathed in a red hue. Vincent's heart raced as he realized his mistake. The attempt to communicate had alerted the reptilians to their presence. He grabbed the stone and made a hasty retreat, rejoining his family. The cavern was now in chaos. Reptilian guards, armed with advanced weaponry, began to scour the area. The Thompsons knew they had to escape, but the entrance was now heavily guarded. Jeremy, thinking quickly, pulled out a map of Yellowstone. "There are natural caves and tunnels throughout the park," he said, pointing to a series of markings. "If we can find one of these, we might be able to make our way to the surface." The family moved stealthily, using their knowledge of the park and the terrain to their advantage. Every shadow, every sound sent their hearts racing, the threat of discovery ever present. As they navigated the underground maze, they stumbled upon another revelation. A chamber filled with what appeared to be stasis pods, each containing a human. The implications were chilling. Were these people prisoners? Test subjects? Or something even more sinister? The weight of their discovery, coupled with the immediate danger, was almost too much to bear. But the Thompsons pressed on, their determination unwavering. After what felt like hours, they finally found a natural tunnel leading upwards. The climb was treacherous, the path fraught with obstacles. But with each step, the promise of the surface, of freedom, spurred them on. Finally, they emerged into the open air, the vast expanse of Yellowstone stretching before them. The relief was palpable, but they knew they were far from safe. The reptilians were aware of their presence, and the stakes had never been higher. As they made their way back to their motorhome, the weight of their discovery heavy on their minds, they knew one thing for certain. Their adventure was only just beginning, and the battle for Earth's future had commenced. Chapter 4. Capture and confinement. The Thompsons' motorhome, once a symbol of their adventurous spirit, now felt like a sanctuary. They had barely made it inside when a series of thuds echoed around them. The vehicle was surrounded. Through the tinted windows, they could see the silhouettes of the reptilian guards, their forms imposing even in the dimming light. Before they could react, a blinding light filled the motorhome, paralyzing them. One by one, they were dragged out, their protests muffled by the guards' vice-like grips. The family was herded into a transport vehicle, its design alien yet eerily familiar. The journey was a blur, the landscape outside shifting rapidly. When the vehicle finally came to a halt, they found themselves at the heart of the reptilian colony. The underground city was even more magnificent up close. Towering spires reached for the cavern's ceiling, and the air was filled with a cacophony of sounds: the hum of machinery, the hiss of steam, and the murmurs of countless reptilians going about their tasks. The Thompsons were led to a central chamber, its walls adorned with intricate carvings that told the story of the reptilians' ancient civilization. At the far end of the chamber sat a raised platform, and upon it, a throne. Seated on the throne was a reptilian unlike any they had seen before. Larger, with scales that shimmered like precious gems, this was clearly a being of great importance. "Welcome, humans," the reptilian leader intoned, its voice echoing throughout the chamber. "I am Zarnak, Supreme Commander of the reptilian hierarchy. You have trespassed on sacred ground, and for that, you must face the consequences." Mark stepped forward, his voice firm. "We meant no harm. We were merely exploring, trying to understand." Zarnak's eyes narrowed. "Your curiosity has led you to a truth that was meant to remain hidden. Our colonization plans for Earth are nearing completion. Soon, our kind will rise from the shadows, and humanity will be but a memory. The weight of Zarnak's words hung heavily in the air. The Thompsons exchanged fearful glances, realizing the gravity of their situation. Lewis, ever the thinker, recalled an obscure fact from one of his readings. The draconian star, he whispered, almost to himself. Legend speaks of a star, a beacon, that the reptilians revere. It's said to hold power over them. Zarnak's reaction was immediate. His eyes flashed with anger, and he rose from his throne. Silence! You speak of things you do not understand. But Lewis pressed on, desperation lending him courage. The draconian star is said to be a key, a way to control or even banish the reptilians. If we can find it, we might have a chance. Zarnak's laughter filled the chamber, cold and mocking. You think a mere legend can save you? The draconian star is a myth, a fairy tale told to frighten hatchlings. Yet, despite his words, there was a flicker of uncertainty in Zarnak's eyes. The Thompsons seized upon it, hope rekindling. We will find the draconian star, Mark declared, his voice filled with determination. And when we do, you and your kind will be banished from Earth forever. Zarnak's response was swift. You will remain here, confined, while we complete our plans. Your precious Earth will be ours, and there is nothing you can do to stop it. The family was led to a holding cell, its walls lined with a strange material that seemed to absorb light. As the door closed behind them, plunging them into darkness, they huddled together, drawing strength from each other. In the silence of their confinement, a plan began to form. They would find the draconian star, unlock its power, and save their world. The stakes had never been higher, but the Thompsons were united in their resolve. Outside their cell, the reptilian colony buzzed with activity, the final stages of their colonization plans underway. But in the shadows, eyes watched, waiting for the right moment to strike. The battle for Earth's future was far from over, and the Thompsons were at its epicenter. The next chapter of their adventure was about to begin. Chapter 5. The Great Escape. The Thompsons' confinement was a test of their resilience and ingenuity. Their cell, a cold, dimly lit chamber, was designed to disorient and break the spirit. But the family had something the reptilians hadn't counted on: hope and determination. Lewis, with his vast knowledge, became the linchpin of their escape plan. The walls, he whispered one evening, they're made of a material that absorbs light, but they might also block certain frequencies. Jeremy's eyes lit up. The motorhome's tech. If we can somehow access it remotely, we might be able to communicate and plan our escape. The siblings set to work, using the small tools they had on hand and improvising where necessary. Days turned into nights, and nights into days, but time was a luxury they couldn't afford. One evening, as Vincent was fiddling with the obsidian stone, it emitted a soft glow. The stone, it seemed, had properties they hadn't yet discovered. It resonated at a frequency that the cell's walls couldn't block. Using the stone as a conduit, they managed to connect with the motorhome's advanced systems. The proximity drones, still operational, became their eyes and ears outside the cell. The family learned that the reptilian colony was vast, but there were vulnerabilities. The electric bikes, with their speed and maneuverability, would be their best chance at a daring escape. The plan was set. Vincent, with his fearless spirit, would create a diversion, drawing the guards away from their cell. Meanwhile, Jeremy and Lewis would use the drones to disable the security systems, allowing the family to make their way to the motorhome. The night of the escape arrived, the colony bathed in an eerie, luminescent glow. Vincent, with the obsidian stone in hand, approached the central chamber. Using the stone's energy, he created a series of illusions, shadowy figures, strange noises, and blinding lights. The reptilian guards, taken by surprise, scrambled to respond. Back at the cell, Jeremy and Lewis worked in tandem, guiding the drones to key points in the colony's security grid. One by one, the systems went offline, plunging sections of the colony into darkness. The cell door slid open, and the Thompsons made their move. Racing through the winding tunnels, they reached the motorhome. But their escape was far from over. The electric bikes, charged and ready, awaited them. The family mounted up, the roar of the bikes echoing through the caverns. The Reptilians, realizing the escape was underway, gave chase. Vincent, true to his role, led the charge, drawing the majority of the guards away with his fearless diversion tactics. The tunnels became a high-speed maze, the bike's headlights cutting through the darkness. As they neared the surface, the sounds of pursuit grew distant. Vincent, having evaded his pursuers, rejoined the group, a triumphant grin on his face. The family emerged from the underground, the night sky overhead a tapestry of stars. They made their way to a predetermined rendezvous point, a secluded clearing away from the prying eyes of the Reptilians. As they caught their breath, the weight of their escape sinking in, Mark turned to his children, pride evident in his eyes. "We did it," he whispered, pulling them into a tight embrace. But the night wasn't over. In the distance, the sounds of the reptilian colony could be heard, a reminder of the threat that still loomed. The Thompsons knew their fight was far from over, but for now, they had won a crucial battle. Gathering around a campfire, the family recounted their daring escape, each member playing a vital role. The flames danced, casting a warm glow on their faces, and for a moment, all was right in the world. But as the embers died down, and the night deepened, the Thompsons knew that their adventure was only just beginning. The quest for the Draconian Star, and the battle for Earth's future, awaited them. Chapter 6. Planning the resistance. The Thompsons' camp was a hive of activity. Nestled in a secluded grove, away from the prying eyes of the Reptilians, the family had transformed their luxurious motorhome into a makeshift command center. Maps, tools, and various devices were spread out, each member engrossed in their tasks. Jeremy, with his encyclopedic knowledge of Yellowstone, was hunched over a large map of the park. His fingers traced the intricate network of trails, rivers, and landmarks, identifying potential weak points in the reptilian colony's defenses. These geothermal areas, he mused, pointing to a series of hotspots, could be their Achilles heel. The heat and pressure might interfere with their technology. Lewis, ever the scholar, delved into the historical context. "There have been legends," he began, his voice filled with a mix of excitement and trepidation, stories passed down through generations about encounters with reptilian beings. Native American tribes spoke of lizard people who lived underground, and there are ancient texts that hint at battles between humans and reptilians. He pulled out an old, weathered book, its pages yellowed with age. "This," he said, "is a compilation of such accounts. If we can understand their history, their patterns, we might be able to anticipate their moves." Vincent, meanwhile, had taken on the role of scout. Armed with the motorhome's advanced tech, he ventured into the park, searching for resources and potential allies. The wildlife, it seemed, was acutely aware of the reptilian presence. Animals behaved erratically, their instincts sensing the alien threat. On one of his expeditions, Vincent encountered a group of park rangers, their faces etched with concern. They had noticed the strange activities, the unexplained phenomena, and were determined to get to the bottom of it. Vincent, realizing the value of having allies with intimate knowledge of the park, enlisted their help. Back at the camp, the family reconvened, pooling their findings. The picture that emerged was both daunting and hopeful. The Reptilians, for all their advanced technology and numbers, had vulnerabilities. And the Thompsons, with their unique skills and the support of the park rangers, had a fighting chance. The plan was set in motion. Jeremy's map knowledge would guide their movements, allowing them to strike at the reptilian colony's weak points. Lewis, with his historical insights, would provide the context, helping them anticipate the reptilian strategies. Vincent, with his fearless spirit and the support of the Rangers, would lead reconnaissance missions, gathering intel and resources. The days that followed were a blur of activity. The Thompsons, along with the Rangers, trained rigorously, honing their skills and preparing for the battle ahead. They set up surveillance points, using the motorhome's drones to monitor the reptilian colony's movements. They gathered supplies, fortified their camp, and established communication lines. As the preparations neared completion, the family gathered around the campfire, the flames casting a warm glow on their faces. The weight of the task ahead was evident in their eyes, but so was the determination. "We have a chance," Mark said, his voice filled with conviction. "A chance to protect our world, to ensure a future for humanity. The Reptilians might have the numbers, the technology, but we have something they don't: heart, spirit, and the will to fight." The family nodded in agreement, their resolve unwavering. The battle for Earth's future was about to begin, and the Thompsons were at the forefront. As the embers of the campfire died down, and the night deepened, the family retreated to the motorhome, seeking rest and solace. But outside, in the vast expanse of Yellowstone, the stage was set for a showdown of epic proportions. The resistance was ready, and the Thompsons were leading the charge. The next chapter of their adventure awaited, and they were determined to write their own destiny. Chapter 7. Setting the traps. Yellowstone, with its vast expanse and diverse terrain, was a natural fortress. The geysers, hot springs, and rugged landscapes, which once served as the backdrop for the Thompsons' adventure, now became their weapons. The family, along with the Rangers, set to work, using the park's features to their advantage. The geysers, with their unpredictable eruptions, were rigged to release at specific intervals. The hot springs, with their scalding waters, were turned into moats. The dense forests and rocky outcrops became hiding spots, ambush points from which they could launch surprise attacks. The motorhome's drones, with their advanced surveillance capabilities, played a crucial role. Hovering high above, they provided a bird's-eye view of the park, tracking the reptilian patrols and relaying real-time intel. Lewis, with his vast knowledge, became the strategist. "The Reptilians," he explained, "have patterns, behaviors that they've exhibited throughout history. If we can anticipate their movements, we can stay one step ahead." He delved into the ancient texts, cross-referencing them with the drone's data. Patterns began to emerge, and the family adjusted their traps accordingly. Vincent, ever the daredevil, took on the role of the decoy. Using his electric bike, he would lead the reptilian patrols on wild chases, drawing them away from key areas and into the traps. His fearless confrontations, coupled with his uncanny ability to evade capture, made him the perfect candidate for the job. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the park in a golden hue, the Thompsons put their plan into action. Vincent, revving his bike's engine, sped off, drawing the attention of a nearby reptilian patrol. The drones, hovering overhead, relayed his position, allowing the family to coordinate their movements. As Vincent led the patrol towards a geyser, Jeremy and Mark, hidden behind a rock outcrop, waited for the right moment. As the reptilians closed in, the geyser erupted, sending a plume of scalding water into the air. The reptilians, caught off guard, were momentarily disoriented, allowing Vincent to make his escape. Elsewhere in the park, another trap was being set. Lewis and Lisa, using the drone's intel, positioned themselves near a hot spring. As a reptilian patrol approached, Lewis activated a device, sending a series of vibrations through the ground. The reptilians, sensing the disturbance, moved to investigate. As they neared the hot spring, Lisa released a series of ropes, tripping them and sending them tumbling into the scalding waters. The night was filled with such skirmishes, the Thompsons and the Rangers using their knowledge of the park and their ingenuity to outwit the reptilians. With each successful trap, their confidence grew, and the balance of power began to shift. As dawn broke, the family regrouped, taking stock of their successes and planning their next move. The reptilians, realizing they were up against a formidable foe, retreated, regrouping and strategizing. The Thompsons knew the battle was far from over. The reptilians, with their advanced technology and sheer numbers, were a force to be reckoned with. But the family also knew they had something the reptilians didn't: the element of surprise, the knowledge of the terrain, and the will to fight. As they prepared for the next phase of their resistance, the Thompsons took a moment to reflect. They had come to Yellowstone seeking adventure, and they had found it, albeit in a form they could never have imagined. The stakes were high, the odds stacked against them, but the Thompsons were united in their resolve. They would protect their world, their home, at any cost. The next chapter of their adventure awaited, and they were ready. Chapter 8. The first strike. The night was still, the only sound being the distant hoot of an owl and the gentle rustling of leaves. The Thompsons' camp, bathed in the soft glow of the campfire, seemed like a haven in the vast wilderness of Yellowstone. But this tranquility was deceptive. Without warning, the ground trembled. The once serene night was shattered by the unmistakable sounds of an advancing force. The reptilians, having regrouped and strategized, were launching their first major offensive. The family sprang into action. Jeremy and Mark manned the perimeter, using the geysers as natural barriers. Lisa and Lewis, drawing upon their knowledge of the park's geothermal features, activated a series of hot springs, turning them into boiling moats. The reptilians, confident in their numbers and technology, advanced relentlessly. But they hadn't counted on the Thompsons' ingenuity and determination. As they neared the geysers, jets of scalding water shot into the air, catching them off guard. Those that managed to evade the geysers found themselves confronted by the hot springs, their treacherous waters claiming more than a few. But the reptilians were relentless. Wave after wave descended upon the camp, their sheer numbers threatening to overwhelm the family's defenses. Vincent, ever the daredevil, mounted his electric bike, leading a group of reptilians on a wild chase, drawing them away from the camp and into a trap. As the battle raged on, there was a moment that would forever be etched in the Thompsons' memories. A reptilian, larger and more menacing than the rest, broke through the defenses, heading straight for Lisa. Mark, seeing the danger, threw himself in its path, grappling with the creature. The two tumbled to the ground, locked in a fierce struggle. Jeremy and Lewis, seeing their father in peril, rushed to his aid. Together, the three managed to overpower the reptilian, but not before it left a deep gash on Mark's arm. The family regrouped, the reality of their situation sinking in. They were up against a formidable foe, and the odds were stacked against them. But they also realized that they had something the reptilians didn't: each other. As they tended to Mark's wound, the family shared a moment of reflection and bonding. They spoke of their love for each other, their determination to protect their world, and their resolve to fight to the very end. The night's events had taken a toll, both physically and emotionally. But they had also galvanized the family, strengthening their resolve. They realized that they couldn't remain on the defensive forever. It was time to go on the offensive. As dawn broke, casting the park in a golden hue, the Thompsons began planning their next move. They would take the fight to the reptilians, using their knowledge of the park and their unique skills to launch a series of strikes. The battle for Earth's future was far from over, but the Thompsons were ready. They had faced the enemy, looked them in the eye, and emerged stronger than ever. The next chapter of their adventure awaited, and they were determined to write their own destiny. Chapter 9. Infiltrating the base. The Thompsons' camp was a scene of intense activity. Maps, tools, and devices were spread out, each member engrossed in their tasks. The decision had been made. They would infiltrate the reptilian base. Jeremy, with his encyclopedic knowledge of Yellowstone, had identified a series of tunnels that led directly to the heart of the reptilian colony. These tunnels, he explained, are old, forgotten by most. But they could be our way in. Lewis, ever the tech whiz, had been working on a device that could bypass the reptilian security systems. "It's a frequency jammer," he said, holding up a small, sleek device. "It should disrupt their communications, giving us a window of opportunity." Vincent, with his fearless spirit, volunteered to lead the charge. "I know the risks," he said, determination evident in his eyes. "But we have to do this. For our world, for our future." The plan was set. Using the tunnels, the family would make their way into the base, bypassing the security systems using Lewis's device. Once inside, they would locate the main colonization ship and sabotage it, dealing a crippling blow to the reptilians' plans. The night of the infiltration arrived, the colony bathed in an eerie, luminescent glow. The Thompsons, dressed in dark clothing and armed with an array of tools and devices, made their way to the entrance of the tunnels. The journey through the tunnels was fraught with danger. The air was thick, the walls closing in, and the ever-present threat of reptilian patrols. But the family pressed on, guided by Jeremy's knowledge and Lewis's device. As they neared the heart of the colony, the sounds of the reptilians' activities grew louder. The family, using the shadows to their advantage, stealthily made their way through the base, avoiding detection. Finally, they reached their objective, the main colonization ship. The sight that greeted them was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The ship, a massive, sleek structure, hummed with energy, its purpose evident in its design. The family set to work, using their tools and devices to sabotage the ship's systems. Vincent, with his fearless spirit, ventured deeper into the ship, searching for its power source. Jeremy and Lewis, meanwhile, focused on the ship's communication systems, ensuring that no distress signals were sent out. As they worked, the family became aware of a growing sense of unease. The reptilians, it seemed, were becoming aware of their presence. The sounds of patrols grew louder, the air thick with tension. But the Thompsons were undeterred. They had come too far, sacrificed too much, to turn back now. With a final push, they completed their sabotage, setting the ship's systems on a collision course. As alarms blared and lights flashed, the family made their escape, retracing their steps through the tunnels and emerging into the night. The sounds of the colony, now in chaos, echoed behind them. The family regrouped, catching their breath and taking stock of their achievements. They had done it. They had infiltrated the base, sabotaged the colonization ship, and dealt a significant blow to the Reptilians' plans. But they also knew that the battle was far from over. The Reptilians, with their advanced technology and sheer numbers, would regroup and retaliate. The Thompsons had to be ready. As they made their way back to their camp, the weight of their actions sinking in, the family shared a moment of reflection. They had faced insurmountable odds, put their lives on the line, and emerged victorious. But the next chapter of their adventure awaited, and they were determined to see it through to the end. The fate of their world and their future hung in the balance. Chapter 10. The battle at Old Faithful. The sky was painted with hues of orange and pink as dawn approached, casting a serene glow over Yellowstone. But this tranquility was about to be shattered. The Thompsons, having dealt a significant blow to the Reptilians' plans, were now bracing for retaliation. And it would come at Old Faithful, the iconic geyser that had stood as a testament to nature's power for millennia. Word had spread that the Reptilians were amassing their forces near the geyser, preparing for a final, climactic confrontation. The Thompsons, along with the park rangers and other allies they had gathered, made their way to Old Faithful, determined to make a stand. The scene that greeted them was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Hundreds of Reptilians, their scales glistening in the morning light, were positioned around the geyser, their advanced weaponry trained on the approaching humans. The Thompsons, using the terrain to their advantage, took up positions, their weapons at the ready. The air was thick with tension, the two sides locked in a standoff, waiting for the other to make the first move. It was Vincent, ever the daredevil, who broke the silence. Mounting his electric bike, he sped towards the Reptilian lines, drawing their fire and creating a diversion. The Reptilians, taken by surprise, scrambled to respond, their ranks thrown into disarray. Seizing the opportunity, the Thompsons and their allies launched their assault. Bullets flew, explosions rocked the ground, and the battle for Earth's future was underway. As the two sides clashed, Old Faithful, as if sensing the gravity of the moment, began to rumble. The ground trembled, steam billowed, and with a deafening roar, the geyser erupted, sending a plume of scalding water high into the air. The Thompsons, having anticipated this, used the eruption to their advantage. Jeremy, with his knowledge of the park's geothermal features, had rigged a series of explosives around the geyser. As the water shot into the air, the explosives detonated, turning the eruption into a weapon, raining down boiling water on the Reptilian forces. The Reptilians, caught off guard, were momentarily disoriented, allowing the Thompsons and their allies to press their advantage. Vincent, with his fearless spirit, led the charge, his electric bike weaving through the Reptilian lines, causing havoc and drawing their fire. But the Reptilians were not to be underestimated. Their leader, a massive, menacing figure, stepped forward, rallying his troops and launching a counterattack. The battle raged on, the two sides locked in a fierce struggle, neither willing to give an inch. As the battle reached its climax, Vincent, spotting the Reptilian leader, made a beeline for him. The two clashed, their weapons clashing, their strength and skill evenly matched. The outcome of the battle, it seemed, would be decided by this one-on-one confrontation. The two combatants, locked in a fierce struggle, moved closer to Old Faithful, the geyser's steam and heat adding to the intensity of the moment. Vincent, drawing upon his bravery and determination, managed to land a blow, sending the reptilian leader tumbling into the geysers' boiling waters. With their leader defeated, the reptilian forces, demoralized and disoriented, began to retreat. The Thompsons and their allies, having turned the tide of the battle, pressed their advantage, driving the reptilians from the park and dealing a significant blow to their colonization plans. As the dust settled and the sounds of battle faded, the Thompsons, battered but unbowed, took a moment to reflect. They had faced insurmountable odds, put their lives on the line, and emerged victorious. But they also knew that the battle was just the beginning. The reptilians, with their advanced technology and sheer numbers, would regroup and retaliate. The Thompsons had to be ready. As they made their way back to their camp, the weight of their actions sinking in, the family shared a moment of reflection. They had faced the enemy, looked them in the eye, and emerged stronger than ever. The next chapter of their adventure awaited, and they were determined to see it through to the end. The fate of their world and their future hung in the balance. Chapter 11. Uncovering the truth. The aftermath of the battle at Old Faithful left Yellowstone in an eerie silence. The once bustling park was now a war zone, with remnants of the fierce confrontation scattered everywhere. But for the Thompsons, the fight was far from over. The reptilian base, now vulnerable after their defeat, beckoned them. It was time to uncover the truth. With caution, the family made their way to the entrance of the base. The vast underground complex was a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers, illuminated by a strange, luminescent glow. The air was thick with tension, the silence only broken by the distant hum of machinery. As they ventured deeper into the base, they stumbled upon a vast archive. Rows upon rows of ancient manuscripts, tablets, and devices filled the room. It was clear that this was a repository of the reptilians' history, a record of their interactions with humanity. Lewis, with his knack for deciphering obscure texts, took the lead. As he delved into the records, a chilling narrative began to emerge. The reptilians, it seemed, had been interacting with humans for millennia, manipulating events from the shadows, shaping the course of history to suit their needs. Their intentions, Lewis explained, were never benevolent. They viewed humans as a resource, a means to an end. Their colonization plans were just the latest in a long line of attempts to assert their dominance. The records spoke of ancient civilizations that had risen and fallen under the reptilians' influence. Empires that had been brought to their knees, leaders who had been corrupted, wars that had been instigated. The reptilians' fingerprints were everywhere. But the records also spoke of resistance. Throughout history, there had been those who had stood up to the reptilians, who had fought back and thwarted their plans. The Thompsons, it seemed, were the latest in a long line of defenders. As the weight of their discovery sank in, the family realized the gravity of their situation. They were in possession of information that could change the course of history, that could expose the reptilians' true intentions and rally humanity against them. The decision was unanimous. They would expose the truth to the world. Using the base's communication systems, they broadcasted their findings, sharing the reptilians' history and their plans with every corner of the globe. The response was immediate. Across the world, people rose up, united in their resolve to resist the reptilian threat. Governments, once divided, now came together, forming a global coalition to combat the invaders. The Thompsons, having played their part, made their way out of the base, their mission accomplished. But they knew that the battle was far from over. The reptilians, with their advanced technology and sheer numbers, would not go down without a fight. As they emerged into the daylight, the family shared a moment of reflection. They had faced insurmountable odds, uncovered the truth, and set the stage for the final confrontation. The next chapter of their adventure awaited, and they were ready. The fate of their world and their future hung in the balance. Chapter 12. Rallying the park rangers, the sun was beginning its descent, casting long shadows across the vast expanse of Yellowstone. The Thompsons, armed with their newfound knowledge, approached the park ranger station. The wooden structure, usually a beacon of safety and order, now stood as the last bastion of hope against the looming reptilian threat. Mark led the charge, his face etched with determination. "We need to speak to the head ranger," he declared, pushing open the door. The rangers inside, busy with their duties, looked up in surprise. "We've uncovered the truth about the reptilians," Lisa began, her voice filled with urgency. "We have evidence, records from their base. We need your help." The head ranger, a gruff man named Samuel, raised an eyebrow in skepticism. "Reptilians? You expect us to believe that?" Lewis stepped forward, placing the ancient manuscripts and devices on the table. "These are their records," he said, his voice steady. "They detail their interactions with humanity, their plans for colonization. We've broadcasted our findings to the world, but we need to act, and we need to act now." Samuel, his curiosity piqued, began to peruse the records. As he delved deeper, his skepticism turned to shock, then to anger. This is unbelievable," he muttered, his face pale. The other rangers, seeing their leader's reaction, gathered around, their disbelief turning to horror as they realized the gravity of the situation. "We need to form a united front," Jeremy declared, his voice filled with resolve. "Together, we can resist the reptilian threat." Samuel, his initial skepticism replaced by determination, nodded in agreement. "We're with you," he said, his voice filled with conviction. "We'll rally every ranger in the park, form a defense, and take the fight to them." The next few hours were a blur of activity. The ranger station was transformed into a war room, with maps, tools, and weapons spread out. The rangers, drawing upon their knowledge of the park and its terrain, began to strategize, planning a coordinated attack against the reptilian forces. Vincent, with his fearless spirit, volunteered to lead a reconnaissance mission, gathering intel on the reptilians' positions and movements. Jeremy, with his encyclopedic knowledge of Yellowstone, identified key choke points and ambush locations. Lewis, ever the tech whiz, worked on enhancing the park's communication systems, ensuring that the rangers could coordinate their efforts. As night fell, the rangers, armed and ready, gathered outside the station. The air was thick with tension, the weight of their mission evident in their faces. But there was also a sense of determination, a resolve to protect their park and their world. Samuel, addressing the gathered rangers, spoke with passion and conviction. "We are the last line of defense," he declared, his voice filled with fire. "The fate of our world rests on our shoulders. But we are not alone. We have the Thompsons, who have uncovered the truth and rallied us to the cause. Together, we will resist, we will fight, and we will prevail." The rangers, their spirits lifted, let out a resounding cheer, their voices echoing through the night. The battle for Yellowstone, and for Earth's future, was about to begin. The Thompsons, standing side by side with the rangers, looked out into the darkness, their resolve unshaken. They had come a long way, faced insurmountable odds, and uncovered the truth. Now, it was time to take the fight to the enemy. The next chapter of their adventure awaited, and they were ready. The fate of their world and their future hung in the balance. Chapter 13. The final assault. The pre-dawn air was thick with anticipation. The combined forces of the Thompsons and the park rangers stood at the edge of the forest, overlooking the Reptilian base. The vast underground complex, once a symbol of the Reptilians' dominance, was now the target of their final assault. Mark, his face illuminated by the soft glow of the rising sun, addressed the gathered forces. "This is it," he began, his voice filled with determination. "The moment we've been preparing for. We have the element of surprise, the knowledge of the park, and the will to fight. Together, we will prevail." The rangers, their faces etched with resolve, nodded in agreement. They had trained for this moment, studied the Reptilians' movements, and planned their attack. Now, it was time to put their plans into action. Vincent, ever the daredevil, took the lead. Mounting his electric bike, he sped towards the base, drawing the Reptilians' fire and creating a diversion. The Reptilians, taken by surprise, scrambled to respond, their ranks thrown into disarray. Seizing the opportunity, the combined forces launched their assault. Bullets flew, explosions rocked the ground, and the battle for Earth's future was underway. The Thompsons, using their knowledge of the park's geothermal features, turned the terrain to their advantage. Geysers erupted, sending plumes of scalding water into the Reptilian ranks. Hot springs bubbled and boiled, creating barriers and obstacles. The Reptilians, caught off guard, were momentarily disoriented, allowing the combined forces to press their advantage. Lewis, with his tech wizardry, hacked into the base's communication systems, causing further chaos and confusion. Jeremy, with his encyclopedic knowledge of Yellowstone, directed the forces, identifying key choke points and ambush locations. But it was Vincent, with his fearless spirit, who inspired the troops. Charging into the heart of the Reptilian lines, his electric bike weaving through the chaos, he rallied the forces, turning the tide of the battle. The Reptilians, realizing the gravity of the situation, launched a counterattack. Their leader, a massive, menacing figure, stepped forward, rallying his troops and leading the charge. The two sides clashed, the battle raging on, neither willing to give an inch. The fate of Earth and the future of humanity hung in the balance. But the combined forces, drawing upon their resolve, their training, and their determination, began to gain the upper hand. The Reptilians, their numbers dwindling, their morale shattered, began to retreat. The Thompsons, seeing their advantage, pressed on, driving the Reptilians from the base and dealing a significant blow to their colonization plans. As the dust settled and the sounds of battle faded, the combined forces, battered but unbowed, took a moment to reflect. They had faced insurmountable odds, put their lives on the line, and emerged victorious. The base, once a symbol of the Reptilians' dominance, was now in their hands. The records, the technology, and the knowledge contained within would be used to ensure that the Reptilian threat was eradicated once and for all. The Thompsons, standing side by side with the Rangers, looked out over the base, their faces filled with pride and relief. They had come a long way, faced unimaginable challenges, and uncovered the truth. Now, they had taken the fight to the enemy and emerged victorious. The next chapter of their adventure awaited, and they were ready. The fate of their world and their future was secure. Chapter 14. Exposing the invasion. The battle's aftermath was a scene of devastation and triumph. The once imposing Reptilian base now lay in ruins, a testament to the resilience and determination of the human spirit. But for the Thompsons and the Rangers, the fight was not over. They had a duty to expose the truth and ensure that the world was prepared for any future threats. Inside the base, the family began the arduous task of gathering evidence. The vast underground complex was a treasure trove of information, with records, devices, and artifacts detailing the Reptilians' colonization plans. Every corner of the base held secrets, and the Thompsons were determined to uncover them all. Lewis, with his knack for deciphering obscure texts, took the lead. As he delved into the records, a chilling narrative began to emerge. The Reptilians, it seemed, had been planning their invasion for centuries, manipulating events from the shadows and preparing for their moment of conquest. Their plans were meticulous, Lewis explained, his voice filled with a mix of awe and horror. They had mapped out every aspect of their invasion, from the initial landing to the final colonization. They had studied us, analyzed our strengths and weaknesses, and devised strategies to exploit them. Jeremy, with his map in hand, began to piece together the global impact of the invasion. They had identified key locations across the world, he said, his voice filled with urgency. Strategic points that would allow them to control resources, transportation, and communication. If their plans had succeeded, they would have had a stranglehold on the planet. The weight of their discovery was evident in their faces. The Reptilians, with their advanced technology and sheer numbers, posed a threat unlike any other. The world needed to be alerted, and preparations needed to be made. The decision was unanimous. Using the base's communication systems, they began the process of alerting global authorities. The evidence was irrefutable, the threat undeniable. Governments across the world, once divided, now came together, forming a united front against the Reptilian menace. As the news spread, the world reacted with a mix of shock, disbelief, and determination. Protests erupted, demanding action and accountability. Leaders, once complacent, now took decisive action, mobilizing their forces and preparing for any future threats. The Thompsons, having played their part, returned to their motorhome, their mission accomplished. But they knew that their journey was far from over. The Reptilians, with their advanced technology and vast numbers, were still out there, and the threat of another invasion loomed large. As they drove away from Yellowstone, the family shared a moment of reflection. They had faced insurmountable odds, uncovered the truth, and rallied the world to their cause. But they also knew that the battle was far from over. The Reptilians, with their advanced technology and vast numbers, would not go down without a fight. The next chapter of their adventure awaited, and they were ready. The fate of their world and their future hung in the balance. Chapter 15. The world united. The sun had barely risen when the first news broadcasts began. Across the globe, screens flickered to life, displaying images of the Reptilian base, the evidence of their colonization plans, and the brave family that had exposed it all. The world watched in stunned silence, grappling with the reality of an extraterrestrial threat that had lurked beneath their feet. In the heart of London, Prime Minister Eleanor Hartley stood before a hastily convened assembly of world leaders. The Grand Hall, usually reserved for state banquets and diplomatic functions, was now the epicenter of global decision-making. "The evidence is irrefutable," she began, her voice echoing through the hall. "The Reptilian threat is real, and it is imminent. But we are not defenseless. We have the knowledge, the resources, and the will to resist." In Beijing, President Li Wei addressed his nation, his words broadcasted to billions. "We stand at a crossroads," he declared. "But we will not stand alone. We will unite, as one world, one people, against a common enemy." From Moscow to Mumbai, from Cairo to Canberra, the message was the same. The world, once divided by borders and beliefs, was now united in purpose. The reptilian threat had awakened a shared sense of destiny, a realization that humanity's survival depended on cooperation and unity. Yellowstone, once a symbol of natural beauty and wonder, became a beacon of resistance. The park, with its geysers, hot springs, and vast landscapes, was transformed into a training ground, a place where armies from across the world came to prepare for the coming battle. The Thompsons, having played a pivotal role in exposing the truth, were celebrated as heroes. Their bravery, ingenuity, and determination were lauded, their story told and retold in books, films, and songs. They had become symbols of hope, embodiments of the human spirit's resilience and determination. But amidst the celebrations and preparations, there was also a sense of trepidation. The reptilians, with their advanced technology and vast numbers, were still out there, and the threat of another invasion loomed large. In a secret facility deep within the Rocky Mountains, scientists and engineers from across the world worked tirelessly, reverse engineering the reptilian technology and devising strategies to counter their next move. The stakes were high, and the pressure was immense, but the world's best and brightest were determined to rise to the challenge. The Thompsons, having played their part, returned to their motorhome, their mission accomplished. But they knew that their journey was far from over. The reptilians, with their advanced technology and vast numbers, were still out there, and the threat of another invasion loomed large. As they drove away from Yellowstone, the family shared a moment of reflection. They had faced insurmountable odds, uncovered the truth, and rallied the world to their cause. But they also knew that the battle was far from over. The reptilians, with their advanced technology and vast numbers, would not go down without a fight. The next chapter of their adventure awaited, and they were ready. The fate of their world and their future hung in the balance. Chapter 16. The aftermath. The world had changed. The skies, once filled with the foreboding shadows of reptilian ships, were now clear and blue. The ground, which had trembled under the weight of their machinery, was now still. The reptilians, having faced the united might of humanity, had retreated, leaving behind a world forever altered by their presence. Yellowstone, the epicenter of the conflict, bore the scars of battle. The once pristine landscapes were marred by craters and scorched earth. But nature, in its infinite resilience, was already beginning to heal. Green shoots sprouted from the blackened ground, and animals, which had fled the chaos, were slowly returning. The Thompsons, having played a pivotal role in the world's defense, returned to the park. Their motorhome, which had been their sanctuary and fortress, now stood as a testament to their journey. The family, having faced unimaginable challenges, had emerged stronger, their bonds unbreakable. As they sat around a campfire, the flames casting dancing shadows on their faces, they reflected on their adventure. Mark, his voice filled with emotion, spoke first. "We've been through so much," he began, "faced challenges we could never have imagined. But we did it together, as a family." Sarah, her eyes glistening with tears, nodded in agreement. "We've learned so much about ourselves, about our strengths and weaknesses. But most importantly, we've learned the value of family, of sticking together no matter what." Jeremy, his map now filled with annotations and notes, looked up. "We've seen the best and worst of humanity," he said, "witnessed the power of unity and the dangers of division. But through it all, we've remained true to ourselves, to our values." Lewis, ever the scholar, added, "We've also learned about the world, about its history and its mysteries." We've uncovered secrets that have been hidden for centuries, and in doing so, we've changed the course of history. Vincent, his fearless spirit undimmed, grinned. And we've had one heck of an adventure, he declared, faced down aliens, saved the world, and lived to tell the tale. The family laughed, the sound echoing through the night, a testament to their indomitable spirit. They had faced the unknown, battled insurmountable odds, and emerged victorious. Their story, which had begun as a simple family vacation, had become the stuff of legends. As the night deepened and the stars twinkled overhead, the family settled into their motorhome, the memories of their adventure fresh in their minds. But as they drifted off to sleep, a soft beep emanated from the motorhome's control panel. A light blinked, indicating an incoming message. Mark, roused from his slumber, checked the panel. The message, encrypted and coded, was from an unknown source. As he deciphered it, his eyes widened in surprise. The message, short and cryptic, read, "The adventure is not over. Prepare for the next chapter." The Thompsons, having faced one challenge, were now faced with another. The world, it seemed, still held mysteries and dangers, and the family, with their unique skills and experiences, were once again called to action. The next chapter of their adventure awaited, and they were ready. The fate of their world and their future hung in the balance. We hope you have enjoyed our Reptilians at Yellowstone, Paranormal Scary Story. Please visit us at Paranormal Untold Stories. Come to listen to more of our Scary Stories collection. Paranormal Untold Stories encourages you to contact us if you have your own untold story that you would like our professionals team to put online as a scary story. Thank you. Please follow our YouTube channel, Paranormal Untold Stories, and encourage others to do the same. Paranormal Untold Stories.